And we begin this session with Javier.
Bien, muy buenas tardes.
Well, good afternoon. After the work of the different teams, please remember that now we're going to be having a quantitative analysis of the activity carried out today, both here physically as in the streaming and the social networks discussions. First of all, this refers still to yesterday. Yesterday we told you that 592 sessions had been opened up to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but please pay attention to this. When we stopped, there were 918 web sessions following streaming. So 918 yesterday. Remember that we were saying that typically there is more than one person following one streaming session, and then we put forward the hypothesis of 2 persons per session. That means 1,800 people throughout yesterday connected to the streaming and spent maybe half an hour or 2 hours listening to our seminar. But it's important to remember these figures because it's the very first time we share in this way. So we can say that other than the 80 people who were here yesterday, 1,800 people all over the world were following the discussion through streaming at some point in time. And as we were saying yesterday, well, see what the countries are: Spain, Brazil, United States, Philippines, Argentina, Nicaragua, Colombia, Italy, Guatemala, India, and others. But this is information referred to yesterday, but it's the full information about yesterday. Now, let us go to today, November the 4th, up to 4 o'clock, 16 p.m. If yesterday we had 592 sessions, today at 4 o'clock we had 507, slightly less. Very possibly one of the reasons explaining this minor difference is that the Barcelona schools yesterday had a holiday. It was a holiday, so many more teachers were able to have the free time to follow. That could be a reason. Maybe one of the causes explaining this minor difference, because please see, the number from Spain here has gone down, and that's the difference. But Brazil, United States, Colombia, Italy, India, Zimbabwe, Qatar, Australia, Germany are there. And somebody might say, but Qatar? What is there in Qatar that's of the Jesuits? Yes, exactly. In Qatar, precisely now, we have the WISE is taking place. It's the World International Education Summit. This is a meeting. This is the 2014 meeting. This has been organized every year for 4 already. It's a meeting in Qatar that gets approximately 2,000 people from all over the world, leaders in education in Qatar. So we do have 2 sisters there, but as well as that, we have other people then that are connected with us. And so from Qatar, because they are attending this international conference, they are following our seminar. 11 sessions, no less, in Qatar. And this, of course, gives us an idea of how very international and interconnected this Sipei seminar is. Regarding Twitter, yesterday we had 20 added followers. Today up to 4 o'clock, 19 plus to add. So 70 Sipei hashtags, 12 with Sipei seminar. And let me insist once again, please, it would be better to focus on the Sipei hashtag. So people using the Sipei seminar hashtag, please go back to the Sipei hashtag. But anyway, look how many hashtags. Yesterday we had 49, and today the figure has increased clearly in Twitter. New links to our website in Facebook. Today, 145 new pages. Yesterday, it was 61. So here there is an increase as well of the activity on our Facebook site. And then regarding presential activity, we have had one presentation today and two experiences, the same schedule as yesterday, 30 minutes for personal reflection. Today, the time for discussion as a group has been slightly less, 105 minutes of group discussion. Yesterday it was 135. We had 38 individual interventions. Yesterday 58. But the interventions today have been slightly longer. Yesterday it was 2.3 minutes per person. Today 2.7 per intervention. As there was less time, well, there has been, of course, less interventions, but it's been a very rich discussion. And as Brian was telling us before, it's been very, very intense and moving. And of course, the 5 working groups that now are going to be telling us about their work, and we continue to discuss, don't we?
Javier, and now we are going to hear from the groups. So, as yesterday, I will invite the secretaries to give us a summary of their discussion. So, let's begin with the red group. And the blue group can get ready.
Jim Bop, USA. My group was in rebellion against ranking them because they thought that was indicative of the competitiveness that plagues some of our schools. So I'm going to list them, but the order is not necessarily order of importance. The changing world, these are reasons for us to engage in deep educational change at our schools. The changing world needs creative problem solvers who are open to change. We need to create an environment where students are inspired to be passionate, engaged, and to fall in love with what they're doing. We need to make sure that we are setting them up for success in lifelong endeavors and not just good grades in college. Students are changing, and what we know about how to best teach them is evolving. And finally, change is part of our spirituality of discerning and then pursuing the Majas.
Thank you so much. Blue and green, get ready. Blue, who is the...
Thank you. We didn't rank ours either because we didn't have time. But I'm not sure that we would have anyway. So our first one was we need to have changes. So we answered question 1, why change? Because our students have to be more engaged in their own education as distinct from being entertained. Our second point was we need change because the ecological crisis and the technological explosion brings about the need for students to develop specific competencies to engage with these issues. Our third reason, because our schools do not necessarily reflect the reality of the world, particularly with respect to the most vulnerable, who comprise our school populations. Fourthly, because of the changing nature of many structures and multitude of choices that make up the context of the student. And our last one was, we need to change because it better serves the mission of the society, because it will integrate competencies that facilitate a student's ability to contribute to the evolution of the world that will reflect our gospel values.
Thank you. The green group, please.
The reasons for change, we felt that St. Ignatius invites us for a continuous discernment, and this continuous discernment will help us to discover what is the gap. And this particular gap one can find out by reviewing our relationship with God. Secondly, whether we are giving an environment or situation provided to students, as St. Ignatius converted himself Do our schools provide such opportunity for students for conversion? Thirdly, the motto of Majis, whether we are helping our students to do their best and to give their best and be the best. The second reason is, what is our learning for? Has our learning giving our students opportunity to be free, freedom to choose what they want, to select what they want, or are they under the pressure of parents? So they should be given an opportunity to have this freedom. Thirdly, for the greater understanding of human value. And the fourth, all our learning should be student-centered, because today the students are changing due to the global change.
Thank you so much. And now we go to the orange group.
Andrés, de Argentina.
Andres from Argentina. The reasons that we wrote down are not part of a hierarchy, and they gave me the task to establish a hierarchy, so there is none. First, essential reason. Yeah, there you go. Yes, the delay of the interpreting. So anyway, the first reason is that we didn't achieve or attain the goals that we wanted to reach. That's the reason for change. Sometimes it's difficult to convey a religious experience, and one can see in the profile of some of our ex-students that it's forgettable. Yeah. So the first issue is that we don't attain our goals. Second, and something that was pointed out by the other groups already, many things have changed in the world. Our students have changed, families have changed, technologies have changed, society has changed. So the reason for change is change itself. Then another reason for change is to search new alternatives to train and educate in freedom and autonomy, in a dynamic of getting the other to grow, in the ability of actually giving criteria to choose, that is discernment, and all in order to get what is best out of our students.
And the last group, the purple.
Soy Amaya del Colegio San
Amaya from the San Ignacio School in San Sebastian. We're going to refer to the first question. We gave quite a few reasons for change, quite a few. But the consensus was this following order. First of all, Ignatian spirituality, which places us in a context of having to respond to this world from discernment, after contemplation of the world, from discernment, and always answering to the question, what does God want from us? Taking into account where can we do more good and the greater good. That spirituality in itself would be the first reason for change. Second reason, reality itself. In a world changing so fast, in a world that furthermore is changing all the time, although indeed if the world didn't change at such a speed, we would also think that change in our schools is necessary. Third reason, the students themselves. Truth be told, we see them kind of more boring, more bored, and more unhappy and disconnected. So the new way in which young people live nowadays, a new way of learning, is demanding from us a change in the way we act in our schools. So this diverse world would require very creative people with the ability to change. The next reason, number 4, is, well, all the Ignatian pedagogy and all the messages of the society telling us to be there, to go to the limits, opening the way where it has to be opened. And in this sense, we have to go out, get trained by the best, and see how from there we can face it all. And the fifth reason would be the service that we render the world when we work on processes of change. That service in itself is a reason for change in our institutions.
Much to the groups and to the secretaries for this. If I am hearing correctly, it seems that we all agree that change seems to be very important, because all the groups responded that question. And I don't know if there are more reasons that the reasons that we heard. We heard at least 30 reasons why we should change. So I don't know. That is what some people say. That is the way God talks to us. So I think that we should hear ourselves and see the importance of that change. I wonder if there was any group that had time to respond or talk about the second question. Any group? Or Andrés?
The question is, well, what are the 4 key traits or characteristics of this educational change? Well, pedagogical leadership of the managing team. And here, of course, we have to define and assess very well what kind of change has to be carried out. Second, the ability or capability of discernment, and for that use the decisive criteria given by our pedagogy. Third, to strengthen how to make students the main characters or protagonists of their educational process, and this links up with the training, the Ignatian training of the educators, and here as well it means to affect people, getting them to enthuse, to be enthusiastic and intense. And 4, well, braveness, to be brave. Something related to that fear issue we talked about this morning so much. And last but not least, this global overall view of reality, and to find meaning to the presence of students within this reality, for them to find a meaning of their presence too.
Now we have a few minutes. If there is anybody who wants to react or say something else, we will have at least time to 17:45, because then we have something else to do. But so if there is anyone who wants to say something, react to what you just heard coming from the groups, this will be the time. So I suggest at least now, take a minute and see how this word coming from the groups sits in you. What is that? Are your feelings when you hear all these groups talking about why we should change? Now, Javier is going to give us the first summary of the day.
Si recuerdan, igual.
Yes, if you remember, as yesterday, we're going to go now for a summary, a very temporary summary, yeah, because this is going to be retouched with the more detailed analysis of what has been said throughout today, and with the summaries of the different groups that the secretaries are going to give in. A possible summary of today's work would be this image here. It seems as though we're opting for a profound, very deep change in education. This would be the main idea, okay, that the 5 secretaries of the groups have confirmed, in fact. And we sum this up temporarily and with the authorization of Montse, because she was the speaker this morning, well, we've given this diagram showing this change, this deep, profound change, placing the student in the center with the coach, with the cooperative group as a basis, and then the methodology assessment, the change in the role of the teacher, the change in the organization, and the change in the spaces. This was a way to sum up very quickly how deep this change is, and that's why we used Mother Montserrat's image. If we go to the top, it would seem then, or we are going to analyze the reasons that the groups mentioned. One first synthesis is that we want to go for this change because of a missional questioning. That is, we believe that in our mission there is the force and the impulse towards change. So it's part of the mission that we question. And then throughout today we have been asking ourselves, what is success? What does success mean? We've talked a lot about this. What might one understand? What is success and what's the real meaning of it? After in the definite summary we'll try to define it very well. We've talked about sustainable innovation. Mother Montserrat was telling about constant innovation that has to be, however, sustainable in time. We've talked about leadership. It's an element that is key, the need to have leadership that is the driving engine of this change. And the leadership has to be, first of all, in the directing, managing team of the school. Then, with a more detailed analysis, we are going to try and relate these reasons for change. We will try and have a map with the list of the reasons that every group put forward. And a group has worked on this, but we're going to be trying to get that out as well out of today's interventions, more specific and concrete features in the summary of the reasons for deep change. So then that will be included. All this, of course, always in the idea of what we have been doing, also contributions coming from streaming sessions and social networks. And in this way, we have joint thinking and we are uniting feelings, we are uniting thoughts in the process of reflection.
Now we are going to talk about a project that I think is very important for all of us. So I invite now the people involved in the project to come forward. Voy ahora.
Now, I'm going to be talking Spanish. And we want to take advantage of this opportunity that we have in Sipei to introduce this project that we called Educate Magis. This project has not only the very enthusiastic support of the father of the Curia, but the General Father indeed considers this as, in fact, something that can help us to include this huge challenge that the congregation told us about, to work more in and as a network. This project, Educate Magis, we're going to be talking about now. It has been, worked on for quite a time. A lot of work has gone into it. Work that people don't see because it's all happening behind the stage, so to speak. But now, yes, we believe it's necessary to share it with you, and we want to do it precisely here. So, Educate Magis. I want to introduce the people here. Some of you know them already, others don't. But let me tell you the reason why they are here and what their relationship is with this Educate Magis project. We have Brian Flannery, you know him. He is a member of the corporation Educate Magis. We have Dan Carmody as well, and we all know him very well. And together with Eamon and myself, we are part of the managing board. And we have with us as well Kira Boyster, who is the community facilitator of Educate Magis. I'm going to be giving the floor now to Dan, who will tell us what this project is about.
When BC High, with the strong support of really many of you here today, began the initiative for an international colloquium, we did so knowing that the gathering of our global community would be amazing, it alone would not be enough to truly embrace our universal mission as we are called to do so by General Congregation 35. It would simply be a start, and we had to have the faith that it would serve as a catalyst for change. We also knew, as Jose Mesa said at the beginning of the colloquium in Boston, and as he said again at the beginning of this gathering, that the true success of our collaborative efforts would be determined by what we do next, by how we turn the momentum of such incredible events and conversations that we had in Boston, and even more so here at the Sipei, into a truly active global community. For this reason, we are very happy to introduce Educate Magis, a new online community for Jesuit education, as a true continuation of the Boston Colloquium and of Sipei. I think if you had asked me or Bill Cameza or Javier what we could have imagined as the most successful outcome of these global gatherings, it would be hard to say that something like Educate Magis and the creation of Educate Magis would not be right at the top of that list. The global conversations that have taken place since the Boston Colloquium and that are taking place here at Sipei truly indicate that Educate Magis not only has the real potential to meet a need that we are identifying as a worldwide network, the need for a platform that allows us to collaborate at a global level, but that the time and momentum is now to take those important next steps as a continuation of what we have started. In a moment, you will hear from Kira Boyster, the very first community facilitator for Educate Magis, about how our community hopes to serve the universal mission of the society. But let me start by reading our mission, which you can see behind me. The mission of Educate Magis is to create a vibrant online community that will connect educators from our Jesuit and Ignatian schools around the world. This community, transcending boundaries and borders, will open a new way of proceeding for our schools in service of the Jesuit mission, a faith that does justice. Educate Magis is dedicated to answering the society's call to become a universal body with a universal mission, enabling us to collaborate in solidarity as a global community. So to hear more about the specifics of Educate Magis, I'm happy to introduce Kira to walk us through it.
Hola, muy buenas tardes.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody here in Manresa. And hello to those of you connected through streaming. Welcome. I'm Kira. I come from Ireland. And so, first of all, welcome. And thank you very much for connecting. So, good afternoon to the French-speaking people. Unfortunately, we've not had the chance to speak much French here amongst us all. I know that many of you speak French. And however, I hope it won't be too difficult to follow the discussions in English and Spanish.
I'm going to continue in English now because the presentation slides are in English and we're lucky enough to have two wonderful interpreters here with us. As you may have guessed, I'm not a Jesuit myself. I was fortunate enough to receive a Jesuit education, though, and I went on to do some work with the Jesuit organization in Ireland, in social justice projects, spiritual exercise projects, various things, and I'm now lucky enough to be working with Educate Magis. So Jose and Dan have already explained the background of Educate Magis, and I now want to tell you how it's going to work. So as you've seen, there's a lot of work which has been done up until now. We're still working hard, and we hope to launch the website in early 2015. So when you sat down at your seats, you'll have received a bookmark, and here you'll have the web page. When you go onto the web page now, this is what you'll see. So it's just to remind you that we're launching soon. And here you can also register. So you can give us your email addresses so we can stay in contact with you and let you know when we've launched. What I'm going to show you now are designs for the web page, which we're creating at the moment. So this is what they look like. They're not completed, so some of the language isn't correct yet, but it's to give you an idea so you can see what it's going to look like and how it's going to work. So one of the main things that we're doing in Educate Magis is we're mapping this incredible global network of Jesuit schools which exists throughout the world, which can be seen by looking at this room here and by looking at the people who've connected through streaming. It's an incredibly rich network, and we want to map this onto an interactive world map so that you can, first of all, see where all of the other Jesuit education organizations and schools are throughout the world. And then you can also search for schools in particular countries, continents, cities, and connect with these schools. We've all been lucky enough to be here in Sipei, to form new connections with people we hadn't met before, to rekindle other connections. But there are many, many people who didn't get that opportunity, but who do have access to internet and who could do it through the internet. So that's one of the founding concepts of Educate Magis. And through these connections, it's wonderful to be able to connect with each other, to share, to talk, for many different reasons. One of the things, yesterday we heard from Ross in Australia, who presented us with his wonderful examen booklet. And this was an incredible resource for us. I mean, there's so many resources like this being produced in different schools around the world. And we were lucky that he brought this here and gave it to us in person. And we can take this home and give it to other people. But imagine the amount of people who weren't fortunate enough to be here, who didn't get this booklet. And this is one example of a resource, and I'm sure there are many, many more. So one thing we can use Educate Magis for is to share this content. To share whatever content you think would be helpful to others around the world. So as we've seen over the past 2 days here in Sipei, and we still have 3 days ahead of us, there's so much to talk about. So many discussions we've had, ideas we've had, questions which are being raised, challenges which people are facing, solutions they've come up with. And these all make incredible conversations, a lot of which we've had here, which we're having online through streaming. But again, there are so many other people who would like to be involved in these conversations, who can contribute more to these conversations. And fortunately, we get to spend 5 days here together, and we have the opportunity not only to have discussions here within the conference room, but also at dinner, after Mass, in the morning, at breakfast. We're still a very small population of all of the people who are involved in Jesuit education worldwide. And I'm sure there are thousands of people who want to engage in these conversations, who don't have the time or the resources to make it here to meetings like this. So when we leave here, we can use, as I'm sure you're aware, the Sipei has been using an online platform also for discussions pre-Sipei, during Sipei, and also post-Sipei. So something similar we'll be doing with Educate Magis. So we can continue these conversations, keep them alive, create new ideas, and continue to grow. And then another aspect which Educate Magis will work on is enabling exchanges for schools. So as I'm sure you're all aware, school exchanges are becoming more popular, not only so students can learn new languages, but also so they can learn new ways of life, new perspectives. Dan was telling us a story that he happened to meet Joe from Zimbabwe at a meeting somewhere, and they spoke about the possibility of, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do an exchange between Boston and Zimbabwe? And if I'm not mistaken, this exchange now takes place. That was a wonderful coincidence or stroke of luck or whatever you want to call it.
Blessing. We'll call it a
blessing. Let's call it a blessing. But if all of these students, if there are so many students who wish to partake in exchanges, and we have so many Jesuit schools around the world, it makes complete sense for students who want to go to another country to look for a Jesuit school who have a similar ethos, a similar vision and mission, and who have a similar sense of community, so that they can find this school and create an exchange program with this school. So maybe you'll have people here who wish to create an exchange, who want to advertise for other students to come to their school, or who would like to facilitate an exchange for the students of their school to another country, another continent. So this will also be able to organise through Educate Magis. As well as school exchanges, there are so many other collaborations, so much other work which can be done. And as I said, we all have a similar vision, so why not work together? For example, I don't know, maybe Amaya from San Sebastian and Vilma from Cali, maybe you have an idea of your English teachers, and they can work together to create best practices for English teachers in a Spanish-speaking country. Something like this. This is one example. Or maybe Francis in India and John in Australia want to work together to create a social justice project. Or Ikenna in Nigeria and Paul in Canada. There are so many people who have such power and such influence to create incredible collaborative projects. We just need to get in contact, get connecting, get talking, and get collaborating. So this is what we hope that Educate Magis will be able to facilitate. And again, these are just a number of examples which came to my head. Obviously, you have thousands of more ideas, and there are thousands more people who are interested. So ultimately, what we would like Educate Magis to do is to facilitate connections between all of us, between the people of the Jesuit education world globally, so that we can then collaborate, empower each other to work together on these projects, to grow together, to face the challenges of Jesuit education together, and to ultimately develop and transform our way of proceeding in Jesuit education. While we've been working hard on this and we've listened to the needs that have arisen from the Boston Colloquium, amongst other things, and also today, I mean, here in Sipei today and yesterday, many people mentioned, I know George yesterday after your wonderful speech, you mentioned the suggestion of a Jesuit network where people can interact and share, and this is exactly what we'd like to do. So, but something like this only works when everybody works together and when we respond to everybody's needs. So what we'd really like is for you to come. This presentation has been quite short because we've limited time, but we're here all week. Jose, Dan, Brian, Eamon and myself. Please come and talk to us. Let us know what your ideas are, what your thoughts are, what your needs are, what you think we could use Educate Magis for. At the end of the day, we're no experts, but we are here to facilitate this collaboration. So we would love to hear from you. You can also, you have our website there where you can register. Here are also my contact details. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm more than happy to talk to you. Just reach out and let us know. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Can I add one quick comment?
Please, go ahead.
To end on a very high note, it's important that we note that it's free. There's going to be no cost to be a part of Educate Magis, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to add, after some deliberation, the General Curia decided that this project was going to be located in Ireland, and the Irish province generously accepted that. So the office of this project is in Galway, Ireland. And Eamon, besides being a member of the board of directors, he's also the general manager of Educate Magis. And again, Dan was saying this is free. And it's free because we receive a very generous donation from an anonymous donor who will fund us for at least the first 5 years. So we will have time to figure out how we are going to do it after that. So we had to prepare, we had time to prepare ourselves and probably our budgets to do that in the future. I think that, as you see, this is something new. It's something that we want to try, but it's also something that responds to needs that, as Kira said, had been expressed also here during the Sipei. Certainly yesterday, and certainly today too. So we will try to do that, and we are willing to explore, and we are willing to be faithful to our tradition. And I want to connect with that because some of you said that some of the reasons why we should change is that our tradition is a tradition of change. So fidelity or faithfulness to our tradition means to be able to do that too. And Educate Magis seems to be another way in which we can include the new developments and make the new developments work for our mission and work for what we believe and work for what we stand for. So these are the expectations for us. And again, please, if you want to talk to any of us about these ideas, this is the time to do it. And let us really pray together. And we also know that after praying, we need to work hard. But let us pray that this project that is new can help us to move forward and to respond creatively to our mission today. Thank you again to all of you to make all this possible. God bless you.